Hi, and welcome to the Move Better, Feel Better program on Radio Kidnappers. Today we are talking about breathing, and we're doing a little bit more on breathing and really going on about and finding out about how breathing can become your superpower. Breathing, you might be lucky and have a few other superpowers, but if you're looking for one, breathing can be your superpower. Breathing is obviously something we do all day, every day, but when we improve the quality of our breathing, we improve our posture, we improve even things like our pelvic floor. It can help lower our blood pressure, it can help us have more energy, it can help us sleep better, obviously it can help us actually just simply breathe better. But all of these things, this is like a little secret superpower, and it is available all the time, anytime. So my name is Sarah McCallum, and I am a Feldenkrais practitioner and movement coach, and breathing is really, really important and integral to all movement. And in fact, it is one of the movements that we concentrate on I'm going to be talking about a little bit about a breathing workshop that I'm doing, which is definitely the focus of that, but also all of the movements that we do, because it is that underlying fundamental movement. And as I said, it can improve, if you have problems sleeping, it's often because, there's maybe some problem with your breathing, that you maybe snore a little bit, that you just you can't quieten down your brain and your breathing is a little bit tight. Maybe you have somebody who tends to feel anxious, and you can feel, again, that will affect your breathing. There's people who would like to enhance their athletic performance, or they want to go run a little bit faster, or just have a bit more energy to do the things that they do. Again, finding out and understanding a little bit more about your breathing and how that works can really help all of those things. And so what I would like to talk a little bit about today is how I actually work with people and their breathing. I do it in lots and lots of different ways. I'm also going to talk a little bit about the breathing workshop that I've got coming up on Sunday, March the 14th, which is a breathwork, relaxation and movement workshop. But I'd just like to take you through, what happens if, people say, I want some help with my breathing, what is there to know more than breathe in, breathe out? What do we need to know? And we're born breathing and we continue breathing all throughout our life, but what we're interested in is the quality of our breathing. And as I said before, it's an automatic thing that we do. Our autonomic nervous system takes care of our breathing, while we sleep, while we work, while we play, all throughout our life. But your superpower is that you can hack that system at any time and add a level of awareness and consciousness to that. Now, as a Feldenkrais practitioner, we look at movement patterns, and we help you learn new movement patterns. We help you unlearn the ones that aren't so helpful, and we make your whole life and movement easier. Okay, so with breathing, I'm going to give you an example of a client who came to see me. Let's just call her Emma. And she came to me actually specifically for breathing. She was a super fit person. She played a lot of sport, but she said, and she had an office job during the day, but she said that when she would come to do her sporting activities, and she did CrossFit and things like this, she just felt like her breathing was constricted and she couldn't really take a deep breath. But her fitness was absolutely not a problem. I mean, she was super fit. Kind of interesting that she still had a problem with her breathing. And so, the first thing that we did was actually, okay, how do you breathe right now? What's your normal? What's the kind of benchmark, if you like, about what that is? And I say, in the Feldenkrais method, we use awareness as our first step. That's your secret sauce. People want to know how to breathe better, with awareness. Okay, and you need to actually add a little bit of conscious attention to that. It's like, okay, so how do you breathe? First step, are you breathing in through your mouth, or are you breathing in through your nose? Do you mix it up? Interesting, of course, when we go into a sporting activity and we start to get a heart rate up, much, much harder to keep breathing through your nose, because we need to get that air coming in. But it is possible. The fitter you get, the easier it is to start breathing a little bit more through your nose, which gives you more oxygen through the system, It makes sure that you've got the right kind of temperature coming into your lungs. It opens all of those blood vessels up. It does a whole lot of really good things. So breathing through your nose is a helpful thing. But, first up, do you actually do it? And even when you're going for things like a walk, are you actually breathing through your nose? Or, after a while, even if your heart rate's not up, are you actually breathing through your mouth or breathing through your nose? Most of the time you'd be like, I don't know. So step one, ask yourself that question. So for Emma, that's what we did. We sort of said, okay, doing these different activities, even doing some light movements in the room, what happens? Are you breathing through your mouth? Are you breathing through your nose? Then the next step was, again, for awareness, it's like, okay, so where do you feel you're breathing? How do you know? If I was to ask you how you know you're breathing, how do you know? I mean, obviously we're here, we're alive, so, okay, yep, bonus, that's a good start. But how do you know? And it's like, where can you sense your breath? Do you feel it through, maybe coming through your nose? Can you feel some air moving through your mouth, maybe in the back of your throat, in your chest? Can you feel different parts of your torso moving? And we don't really think about, we've got different breathing parts, it's just my lungs kind of inflating, deflating, end of story, in, out, rinse, repeat. Okay, so let's say once we start to ask these questions, it sort of became apparent for Emma that she had a really constricted chest. And as I said before, she was super strong, she was super fit, but she was really tight across her chest. Her ribs barely moved at all. And if you can imagine, that you're trying to inflate a balloon, so inflating your lungs, you're trying to take a deep breath, you're needing more oxygen while you're working out, and you've got this kind of pressure pushing against that, so your lungs are trying to push out, but your ribs aren't going to move, Really helpful when your ribs can actually move in all directions and let your lungs expand. She was also holding her belly, her abdomen really, really tight. She was drawing it in, and she wasn't letting it go at all in any part of her breathing cycle. So I was like, no wonder, no matter what she was doing, whether she was sitting in her office chair, whether she was going for a walk, whether she was doing anything at all, that her breathing was restricted. So awareness is that first step. And then of course, we work together to do some movements to actually start to free up those areas. But she didn't even know that actually she could breathe or use different parts of her torso like that to actually help herself breathe more easily. Again, if somebody just says to you, just breathe deeply, take a deep breath, But if those parts of yourself are actually if you can't move your chest, you can't move your belly, you can't really move your ribs, it doesn't matter how hard you try, you're working against yourself to take that deep breath, okay? So deep breathing it can be a really helpful thing. But so we need to know where we start and what kind of parts of ourselves are actually involved in that process. And of course when we lock up on all of those other parts of our torso, that also impedes the movement of our diaphragm, which is our breathing muscle. Okay, so here was Emma. So her sort of home play, as I like to call it, I send my clients, my one-on-one clients, we do some hands-on work together. But I also send them home with a little bit of home play. Not homework, because this is, supposed to be fun. And breathing is not supposed to be hard work, okay? In fact, actually, I love breathing in that it's a great representation of what a quality movement is, not because we're making a huge amount of effort or we're showing off and doing something with our breath, but where it's just easy, it's simple, and also, that actually helpfully, going slow can actually be a really good thing with your breathing rather than going super fast. It's not a race to see who can have the most breaths in their lifetime. And so I sent Emma home and she started, and it was great. Even after that first session, she said to me, she goes, I feel like I have been connected to an oxygen machine. And that was just starting to understand what it was that she was doing, what she wasn't doing, and figuring it out. And then going out into the real world and kind of going, okay, what do I do? When I'm doing this particular activity, when I'm sitting at work, do I breathe through my mouth or do I breathe through my nose? Where can I feel my breath? Can I, am I still restricted in my chest? Oh, okay, yes I am. And once you notice something, then you've got an opportunity to change. If you don't know, there's a great quote by Moshe Feldenkrais, who was the founder of the method, of what the method that I use, and he said, if you don't know what you're doing, Yeah, you can't do what you want. Yeah, so it's a little bit like the definition of madness, that if you keep doing the same thing, or you don't know what it is that you're doing, you can't possibly learn to make a change. Okay, and I say once you've got that awareness, you've got that really important step. Yeah, and it can be a little bit frustrating, for example, when you're first starting out. I mean, I've always been interested in breathing, and this whole idea of breathing through your nose, more so than through your mouth. How much, like for example, when I went for a walk, when I'd go for a bike ride, even actually things like hanging out the washing, I would start to breathe through my mouth. Yeah, so I'm still working on it for when I'm going for a run, but it's a really interesting thing just to actually simply notice that, and you're like, oh, actually, yeah, there I am again doing that same old thing that I do. So we catch our habits, and then we find new ways of doing things. Okay, so then Emma came back for quite a few sessions, and to say we focused all on breathing, and you think, really, like, again, how much is there to know about the breathing? So the next thing we did was to look at breath holding. And I'm not talking about, there's like lots of really great things that you can do about holding your breath. Obviously, like free divers, all these people who do these amazing breath holds. I'm not talking about that. There's even breath holding techniques to help improve your breathing. I'm talking about this little habit that we have, and it is super common. I do it, nearly all of my clients do it to some degree, is to actually hold your breath intermittently during the day. So it's like this little kind of, mini apnea thing that we give ourselves during the day. And what that does is it interferes with our breathing. It means that our whole system is not getting as much, goodness and oxygen as it could be. Yeah, and that makes us tired and grumpy. It affects our concentration, our energy levels, blood pressure, all of these different things. Okay, so again, when do you hold your breath? Are there particular movements that you do that cause you to hold your breath? For example, for Emma, every time she lifted anything, holding her breath. When she moved from sitting to standing, holding her breath. And and it's just that little bit of intermittent breath holding. I say it is not completely unnecessary, and it does affect the quality of the movement that you're doing, how easy it feels, how much effort that you then have to expend to do that. The other thing that's super common that she noticed is that when we, with our home play, is there's even a name for it in the breathing world, which is called email apnea, and that's basically when you're looking at your emails. And each time you go to open your email, you actually hold your breath because you don't know quite what it's going to say, especially if it's from your boss. Yeah, and even when we're playing computer games, when we're watching television, something's exciting is about to happen, little breath hold. And again, it's just starting to notice that habit that we've got, and beginning to then find different ways to be able to free up the breathing. So I highly recommend that when you're doing anything, that you just notice, or during the day, are there particular activities that you do that cause you to hold your breath? I know one of my common ones that I have to remind myself before I do it every time, when I turn right, when I'm driving, I don't know what it is that's triggered that particular habit, but that's something that I do, and it's taken me a long time to actually start to work through that. So I get to an intersection and I'm like, okay, remember to obviously look for where I'm going, what I'm doing, but also, can I do this activity? Simple thing I do a lot, turn right and breathe at the same time. So you might find that there's certain people that maybe or situations that stress you out a little bit more, that you're holding your breath. Okay, so and all of these things can affect that quality. And I say it's all about that awareness. And then what we do in Feldenkrais as well is we then dive a little bit deeper into the anatomy of what's happening with the actual breathing. We dive into some movements that can help to activate your breathing parts. How do you, because you think, okay, so righto, my breathing's not that great, or I know I feel anxious, but how do I change that? And as a lot of the breathing techniques out there are just okay, take a deep belly breath, which if you're not able to actually do that, that's not so helpful. And the other thing is, if you say you're noticing you're holding your breath all of the time, yeah, it takes time for that noticing part, and then it takes time for the change to happen. So what I would also recommend is if you notice that you're holding your breath, is just breathe out, just go, let it out. Because if you're holding your breath and then you try and like take another breath in, and you're actually just kind of filling up the tank, and it's already half full or a quarter full, or maybe a little bit more. Okay, so let your breath out. And also there's I like to call it, it's really catchy, relaxation is on the exhalation. Or exhalation is the relaxation. So again, if you let the breath out, then you know that you're breathing. Again, if you know that there's situations, like for me when I'm turning right, or say for Emma when she was doing something at her office job or doing one of her workouts, I'd be like, okay, to know that you're breathing, to make sure that you are breathing, I highly recommend that you breathe out. Because what happens is that if you concentrate on the in-breath, we're going to go to this, think, oh yeah, I'm just going to check an email, and we're like, okay, I'm just going to take a breath in, and we're like, and we have that pause again. But if you're breathing out, especially at the start of that activity, then you know that you're breathing. Your breathing just flows really easily. And it does make a huge difference. Especially if you suffer from anxiety, especially if you just feel like, you're just really energy depleted at the end of the day. Often, I think, there's a million different things that can deplete our energy, but, if you're breathing well, breathing easily, you've got that freedom to have that breath. It's like you can just hack into all of this awesome, you find your superpower. So go for that breathing superpower. So I'd just like to tell you a little bit about this workshop that I'm doing. So this is Sarah McKillum from Movement Works on Radio Kidnappers, and we're talking about breathing is your superpower. And the workshop that I've got coming up on Sunday, the 14th of March from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. is going to be, as I said, a breathing workshop. It's going to be a breathing, breath work, relaxation and movement. And so we're going to dive into a little bit of the anatomy of how your breathing works, but mostly we're going to experience really practical ways, really practical movements that you can do, little kind of tips that you can take home that you can use in your everyday life to help you breathe easier, to reduce your anxiety, to help yourself feel calm. I'm sure we've all had that situation where we've got to do a presentation, we've got to talk to a group of people, or even if it's just maybe a difficult conversation with your boss, that that will probably change your breathing. And so having just some ideas of what you can do, and it's not about necessarily learning a technique. There are heaps of techniques out there, and a lot of them are really useful. So even if you have a particular breathing technique that you know or use, we're actually finding out a little bit more than that. We're not diving into just that technique or just that one way of breathing. We're kind of going, okay, sometimes that way of breathing is not going to be available. Maybe you're, if you do alternative nostril breathing, for example, but you're freaking out before you've got to do your presentation, you might not have a situation where you can practice that particular breathing technique. Or, if you have to make a funny noise at the back of your throat. Okay, so we're talking about how you can activate your breathing parts, how you can really use all of those different lobes of your lungs to their full capacity, how it actually can change, how you can use your movement, how you can connect that to your environment, to your mood and your movement. And we'll even go a little bit into how your breathing is connected to your pelvic floor. And so yes, breathing can actually improve your pelvic floor, and men, yes, you do have a pelvic floor too. Okay, so again, our breathing can change and improve so much in our lives. So if you're interested in breathing, and I think that everybody deserves to know a little bit more about this thing that we do. We breathe something like 20,000 times a day. If you do the math, I haven't got a calculator with me, but that's a lot, right? That's a lot. If you add that up over a week, a year, a lifetime, that's so many breaths. So, it makes sense to learn a little bit about how you can make that even easier. It just wow, it will blow your mind how much you can improve your life when you discover this easier way of breathing. So if you are interested in knowing more, I run classes. I've got that workshop coming up on Sunday the 14th of March. And if you come to my not yoga classes, awareness through movement classes, breathing is a big part of what we do, and you'll be reminded to breathe, because we're learning new things and we start to hold our breath again. That old habit that Emma had all of the time, I still have some of the time too. It's like, oh yeah, I can still actually learn something new, do something, even do something scary and breathe at the same time. Totally possible, yeah? So I highly encourage you to, say, discover your superpower. If there's something a little bit more about your breathing that you want to, or you don't feel comfortable in a class environment, I also offer one-on-ones. And I say that breathing can help with your posture, it can help with your back pain, it can help with your pelvic floor, it can help with all of those other things. So even if you're coming to see me for any of those other things, we will talk a little bit about your breathing and how that impacts on any of the other movement, pain or difficulty that you might be experiencing. So you have been listening to Sarah McKillum from Movement Works on Radio Kidnappers on the Move Better, Feel Better program, and as I say, we look forward to helping you find your breathing superpower. Thanks, and see you next time.